Hi, welcome back to today's video, and today I want to share with you my motherhood story. So my name is Carol and I'm a proud mom of 3 and I thank God for those blessings. So my motherhood story actually began in the year 2013 when I conceived my first baby. And it was funny because I had taken the emergency contraceptive pill, but it actually backfired, and that's how I got pregnant. And 6 months later, something strange happened. So it was 6 months later when I woke up to go to work, got myself ready, and when I was getting out, I rushed to the toilet, and that's when I noticed a spot of blood. Remember, I was first time mom, so I never knew like a lot about the danger signs of pregnancy. So I decided to just pass by the hospital and just get checked, but I forgot to carry my clinic book. So when I got to the hospital, they never checked on me and I had to understand them. So I just went to work, but the spotting never got that worse, but I had some period like cramps during the day, but I just went on with my work and my day like normally. So in the evening I went back home and I did my night routine as normally, just the normal cleaning, washing utensils. I made dinner and took a shower and slept. But the moment I entered the bed, I felt like a very crazy period cramp, but I never knew like this was the start of my labor pains. So it was so painful. I had to get out of the bed, and like 5 minutes later I felt another severe pain. It was like way painful than the first one, and I had to call a relative by that moment because it was getting much worse. And my then boyfriend, who is my current husband, was still at work, and it was so confusing because remember, I'm 6 months pregnant, a first time mom who never knew anything about so much about pregnancy, let me put it like that. And when my relatives came, we had to rush to the hospital. So like they knew when I explained to them what I was feeling, they knew like what was happening, and they told me to like carry some of the baby's clothes. And when I reached to the hospital, my labor pains were so severe, like I was screaming all over. And so I had to get checked, and by that time I was 4 centimeters dilated. So I went on with my labor, and by 5 a.m. in the morning I received my first bundle of joy. But it was kind of strange because my baby was so tiny, like I would see blood flowing through her veins. So remember, I was in a government hospital where you could see the next mom on the bed, and I could see their babies when they gave birth. Their babies were so big, and because I was 6 months pregnant, my baby was so tiny. So they just showed the baby to me. They never put the baby to rest on my shoulder because this is a preterm baby, so they had to rush her to the NICU to be taken care of. So they just showed me the baby and told me that the baby is a girl. I was so happy, but at the same time confused. I cried. I don't know, I was just totally confused, but I just told God thank you. I was so happy. And they took my baby to the NICU. That's the newborn intensive care unit. So the baby had to go there because by that time, remember, the lungs are not fully developed, so they have to rely on oxygen for them to like survive. So the baby was taken there, and I was left to like clean up and freshen up and eat. And then later I was wheeled to the ward to join the other moms who had their babies at the NICU. And when I reached there, I had to ask the other moms like what was happening, where are our babies. And the doctor just explained a little about like the condition of the baby. So I understood a little of it, but I had to ask to know more. So I was just so confused about everything, but with time I had to get used to everything, like staying without my baby. So the story about having a baby at the NICU is so stressing, it's so confusing, because as a first time mom, you expect to have your baby, you expect to hold your baby, you expect like by the third day you're at home breastfeeding and just relaxing at home with your baby. So we had to go like to the NICU after every 3 hours to go express and feed our babies, and expressing was so painful. It was so painful because you had to use your hands to express the milk and place like a cup under your boob and just press it and press it until the milk that you're told to like feed your baby is enough. So if you're told to like feed your baby like 120 ml, 200 ml, you had to express and press your boob until the amount is enough. So it was so painful, but we had to get used to it. I had to get used to it, in fact, and I did this for a month. So when I was giving birth to my baby was 1.3 kilograms, so she was so small, and I had to like continue feeding her enough for me to go home faster. So the more faster your baby added weight, the more faster you had to go home. So you had to like put on more effort to express, feed the baby, come with the diaper, change the baby, and when it is warm you had to like wipe the baby with a cotton wool and warm water. You never bathe a baby at the NICU. So when your baby was around 1.8 kgs, so the doctors had to remove her from the incubator where she was relying on oxygen and move her to a bed, a cot, a baby cot, where you could go pick the baby and have a kangaroo moment with the baby. So that's when you like pick your baby and place your baby on your chest, open up your dress, place the baby on your chest without the clothes, and cover the baby with the dress, and you just sit there and bond and talk to the baby and just have that like mommy child moment. And this will help the baby recover more quickly and help the baby add more weight more quickly, as the doctors will tell us. And I remember like this one day when I went to check my baby and her skin was all yellow and she had to be put under blue light and her eyes covered, and after like 2 weeks she fully recovered. This was a condition called jaundice, but she fully recovered. So I stayed in the hospital for like a month, and after that 1 month we had to go home. She was around 1.8 kgs. She was still a small baby. When we reached home, everything changed, because when we were told like when you go home, just continue covering the baby, continue keeping the baby warm. And I had to do all that. I had to follow those rules because I never thought of myself going back to the hospital again. So I had to follow all those rules. I like didn't wash my baby for like a month. I had to continue wiping my baby with warm water and cotton wool until like a month, when she was around 2 point something kgs, and that's when I started washing my baby. Like the journey was still stressful, and I had a very good supportive system. Like my mom in lab was so supportive, and she was there for me. She was there for my child. She stood with our family, and she hosted us for like a month, and it was just so relaxing because I had someone take care of me as I was taking care of my baby, and that was so helpful to me. So may God bless her. So one big mistake that I did is that I didn't take my baby to get some sunlight, and it's being a first-time mom, I think I didn't know the importance of taking a baby out to get some sunlight. And I was also afraid like of what will people say when they saw my tiny baby. And I also was so careful like not to expose my baby out to the wind and the outside atmosphere. And from this she developed severe rickets. And I noticed this because at 5 months she couldn't hold her head upright by herself, and I had to go to the hospital, and she was done an x-ray, and they diagnosed her with severe rickets. So the rickets got so severe that I had to start taking my baby for therapy to get her bones stretched and help her reach her milestones faster. And by like 2 years and 3 months, that's when my baby started walking on her own. The journey was full of challenges, and I remember this time by around 2 years my baby got a severe pneumonia and had to be admitted to the hospital. And we stayed there for like 2 weeks, and by the day I was getting discharged, she got this bacterial meningitis. It was so bad, it got her paralyzed one side of the body. And we had not to be like readmitted again because we were preparing to go home. She even went back to feeding with a tube inserted through her nose, and I had to like express the milk and feed her through the tube. It was just so stressful, and she stayed paralyzed for like around 3 days. But thank God we were still in hospital. They got to manage the disease and got her under medications. She was given so many injections, but later she recovered. And I remember that day when she recovered, I was like visited by ladies from our church. We surrounded her bed like holding each other's hands, and we prayed and prayed and prayed. And when we were praying, I had not even closed my eyes. I was just so confused and crying. And as we were praying, I just saw my baby lift her fingers, like move her hands, and it was just a miracle. Like I've never forgotten that day, and that was the end of my baby paralyzing. So like one thing I know, God still works miracles. So bacterial meningitis has some severe side effects, but I thank God that my baby was healed, but it left her with some seizures which were so severe, and she will just fall in. Her part of her body which was paralyzed will just shake, and like things coming out of her mouth form like things. Just the whole part of her body will just shake and twitch, and it was just so confusing. So the severe seizures never stopped until she was like 5 years. That's when they became mild, and until now she's under medications, but we still hope for the best anyway, and we thank God for all that. So I had to continue with therapy, and by around 2 years 3 months, that's when my baby started walking on her own. So my second pregnancy wasn't that challenging, and I carried the baby to term. I'd say it was a smooth pregnancy, but the challenge came when I gave birth to my baby, because my baby never cried, and the doctors did everything possible to help him cry. They even at one time put him upside down and tried to beat his butt, but he never cried. And I was praying so loud, like for my baby to cry. I prayed and prayed, and they had to take him to the nursery to just have some further checkups. And I was just left confused and worried about like what was happening. So I was helped to like freshen up and everything, and I later went to check on him, and thank God 30 minutes later he cried, and the cry was so precious. I was so happy, because like you know what happens when a baby don't cry, like the oxygen don't flow to the brain, and this might cause some brain damage or permanent brain damage. And it's just a lot. I've seen so many mothers, especially when I was going through therapy with my firstborn. I saw so many mothers who had those babies who never cried when they were born, and it's just so much for them. The therapy sessions and everything else, like the delayed milestones. Thank God my baby cried, and he's still okay, and I thank God for that. So 3 years later, I got pregnant again, and this time it was quite a challenge, because when I was 3 months pregnant, I once got like, I'd say like severe labor pains, because like I never slept that night. The pain was so painful. It could come in my lower abdomen and just cross to my back, and it was so painful. In the following morning, I noticed some spotting, and I rushed to the hospital, and this time I knew like this must be an emergency. And upon arrival, they checked on me, and they had a scan done, and it showed that the pregnancy was already terminated. So as they said, this was a pregnancy that could not go to full term, because the sac was distorted. The sac inside the womb where the baby is held, it was distorted, because a sac should have a certain like an oval shape, but my sac was distorted, and it couldn't hold the baby to full term, and so they had to like fully remove and terminate the pregnancy. And this was so painful, because like for me it was done without anesthesia, which was so painful, and they had to like force the cervix to dilate, and it was so painful. Like it was so painful than even giving birth, because I could hear the doctor's hands inside my cervix and out, inside and out, like removing all the tissues and other long metals that they had to insert with cotton wool that will suck everything. they had to remove all the tissues, but and I had to endure all that because I was told if that wasn't done, like removing all the tissues, I could have like future problems in my womb, and I didn't want that, so I had to endure all that. And eventually that was all done, but it never held me back. Like I knew I wanted another baby, and I prayed to God, and God's so faithful because like 1 year later I got pregnant again, and this time it was also a smooth pregnancy, and I carried the baby to term, no complications. But the main challenge came when I was giving birth to my baby, because my baby had shoulder dystocia, and he also had a cord around his neck, so the doctors had to be so careful with everything. But the challenge was because of the shoulder dystocia, now I had to like push for like almost 1 hour. So I was pushing, and the doctors could see the baby's head, but because of the shoulder dystocia, so the head couldn't come out. So the doctors didn't know what was going on at the moment. They didn't know it was shoulder dystocia, so they could see the head, and they could tell me to just continue pushing until they got tired of me, because they thought I wasn't pushing enough. So that was 30 minutes after trying to push, and they just got tired and just left me for some time. So when they left me, I started sweating. It's like I was going crazy because I had no one to assist me around, and I started calling for help, and I started shouting all over because the labor pains were so painful. And they later came, and they told me to like start pushing again, and they told me to just put the jokes aside and push. And they didn't know it was shoulder dystocia, which they should have known, of course. And I started pushing again, but the baby couldn't still come out. And because these were midwives, now they had to consult a doctor. And when the doctor came, he immediately realized that this was shoulder dystocia, and they assisted me, and now I was given the super assistance that I required. So the baby came out, but he never cried. He wasn't even breathing. It was like a dead baby. And I realized that the condition was called birth asphyxia. It was called birth asphyxia. And I don't know, it was just so heavy on my mind. It was so stressful, like to see you carry a baby to full term and the baby never cried, the baby wasn't breathing. The doctors were trying everything possible. They tried the rubbing and the flicking, but the baby never responded. They put him on oxygen and tried everything possible, but the baby never responded. And by this time I was praying so hard, praying so loud, because I could hear what the doctors were saying, like, this baby needs to come back, please baby come back, please baby don't leave us. So I don't know, it was just so crazy. So I had to pray. I prayed so hard, and one doctor just opened the window and the baby just sneezed. They all clapped. They all were happy, so happy. They just said thank you to God. It was just like a small, I don't know, a small drama. They were so happy, and the baby sneezed, the baby cried. Just opening the window just played all the magic. And so the baby cried, and I was so happy. I was so thankful to God. And still had to keep me in the hospital for like 3 days to monitor the baby. But I was so tired. Like, pushing for almost 1 hour is not a joke. Like, any woman who has gone through the vaginal birth knows this. Like, pushing for like an hour is not a joke. But God is gracious. We made it, and my baby is okay, and he just joined school. So that was my motherhood story, and I believe every woman has a different story. So please share your story in the comment section. Like, what have you gone through during your pregnancy? So please share your story in the comment section. I believe it will help or encourage one mom or another. So thank you so much for watching, and I wish every mom out there a smooth motherhood journey. And until the next video, God bless you. God bless your parenting. God bless your motherhood. Love you, mamas.